All right, I'm really pleased to join Dr. Adele Al Maseri. So, Dr. Adele, how do you go by the way? What's your preference?
Just Dr. Adele, if I had an extra E, I'd be rolling in the dough.
Well, we'll see what we can do there. So, Dr. Adele's got a PhD in machine learning, AI. He's a serial entrepreneur who's built two successful tech companies from inception to acquisition. He's also early in blockchain. We actually met at the Satoshi Roundtable. So, the focus of this podcast is on the intersection of AI and crypto from an investing lens, in an innovation lens, and then we'll get into some AI crypto philosophy. So I want to start off first, Doctor, where do you see most of the value capture in AI? On the one hand, you've got the application layer; those are the open AIs of the world, Perplexity, Inflection, and then Google Gemini. And then you've got on the other side the silicon layer, and you've got all sorts of infrastructure in between: machine learning ops, uh, integrators, NVIDIA, component suppliers, you name it. So who's going to capture the most value in the AI gold rush?
So that's a fascinating question, and it starts with the same answer that we had before in the gold rush. It's shovel makers, So NVIDIA is a shovel maker. They are selling shovels, and you are just plugging GPUs into models. That is all good until the paradigm shifts. So today, most of the LLMs use GPUs, basically transformers and so forth, in order for them to process the data and ingest it, train a model, and then you can use it. However, what's coming up next is going to be really, really more interesting because there are alternative models that do not require as much GPU power. So what happens then when we've changed the paradigm not by increasing more GPUs, but by actually increasing the capability of the algorithm itself? We'll be able of doing the exact same thing using CPUs. So it will shift to a different
Using
shovel
CPUs?
using CPUs. Yes, there is research coming from Rice University. Professor Anshu is leading that. Third AI is his company that is doing CPU-based AI processing. So I know it's and the result is actually very comparable, and it has different characteristics than the ones done by the transformers model. See, everything that we know right now in this wonderful revolution is based on transformer technology, which requires a lot of GPU because it's computationally intensive. However, if you can achieve the same results without needing to do the same computation, then you get a totally different game ball, right?
So CPUs rely on sequential operations. GPUs have parallel operations, and the parallel operations are what enable you to unlock speed. So I don't know if you can double click a little bit more around the idea that CPUs can enable AI computation. It looks like it's in research stage right now. I mean, we're very far away from commercial stage.
Right.
The transformer paper at Google, I believe, was published in 2015, and here we are 9 years later before you had GPT launch.
So basically, you are right. The GPUs depend on an array of processing units, right? So if your problem is highly parallel, that allows itself to be parallelized on multiple GPUs or multiple CPUs, and that actually works. The other thing that you need to think about is the time for processing. So a sequential CPU will be able of computing the same problem and arriving to the same results, except it will take longer time because you have to do 1,000 calculations, and it does one calculation, say, per microsecond, versus the GPU, which can do all 1,000 at the same time if it has 1,000 array. If it has 100, it takes 10 cycles. So, but what if you don't have to go through the entire 1,000 to compute them? That's the paradigm shift, that you will be able of just focusing on the areas that you wanted to compute. Let me give you a quick analogy. It's not accurate, but it will get the story home. So there is something called pruning in algorithms, meaning if you are playing a game and you have a tree and you know that you are computing the probability of winning for each branch, and you keep going down that calculation, you could calculate the entire tree all the way to the leaves. However, if you know that a branch already is gonna lose, you don't have to go down and compute the rest of it. That becomes waste of time and waste of computational power. That's exactly how the newer models are doing it. They are finding clever way not to have to compute things that will not be used later on, and hence reduce the size of the problem instead of just throwing it to GPUs and CPUs. Because if all that you know is GPUs, then everything becomes a GPU problem. Just send it to bigger and
Right.
bigger ones.
That makes a lot of sense. That's how, say, the chess algorithm Stockfish would play chess. It has a decision tree, it assigns an expectancy score, and then it evaluates whether to go down that decision tree. And of course, we know you get grandmaster chess play out of these CPUs. But you would also have to have the kernels. You have to have like the coding language itself be compatible with the execution architecture. So even if it's theoretically possible, today these LLMs are built on a parallel compute model. So the software has to go along for the ride with the hardware. Isn't that going to be a limitation for CPUs? If not, I'm going to go buy Intel stock tomorrow. So
so we're still a couple years away from commercializing all of the stuff at a higher scale. However, you are looking at the GPUs from the capacity point of view of the GPU, but down it's basically an array of CPUs, and that's also when you go to train a model on any of the cloud providers, you select between different GPUs based on their capacity and then their speed and the memory associated with them. So it goes down to the same fundamental problem, that your problem today is higher parallel because you are tackling a bigger space, result space. If you are reducing the result space from the beginning, you are able of processing that, and there's nothing will preclude the same a new algorithm to be ran on GPUs. It's just that you will not need to get a whole farm of GPUs. You can then compute that on a laptop with a really nice NVIDIA card in it.
well, that's happening now, right? AI computers are coming. They're redesigning the laptop and the desktop to have GPU compute, which of course happened in the past with video games, but
Yes.
now it's going to become native to the common desktop. I think there's still more on this GPU versus CPU, and we can move past that tab. Like GPUs are really good at matrix calculations, which is what you're doing when you're scoring. Scoring is when you generate a result, obviously, to an input. So it's a really intriguing point that you're right. It's good for humanity, lower energy power consumption, if you're right. It gives relevancy to the old world technology, but we've got years to go. But that's a non-consensus view, the idea that CPUs can do AI computation.
And we have seen it before. Like, remember when you used to play high-end games, you had to have a very high, graphic cards in order to compute that. That's a GPU in essence. But
Right.
as we developed more and more algorithms, the cards did not make that much of a difference. Yes, you could go to 120 frames per second on a really beefy card, but I mean, 60, even 30 would look fine, and it reduces the computational need. That's
It's a
what's
great
happening.
it's a great point. Let me ask this. When I look at AI versus the dot-com era, I'm going to share my screen here in a second. The dot-com era obviously had an extraordinary bubble, but there's extraordinary innovation also. And in the dot-com era, we had the rise of email, the rise of the browser, Netscape Navigator. We had chat. We also had the rise of e-commerce, news groups. And if I look at where we are today, we have the ability to do coding. You can get a 1x engineer, maybe a 10x engineer. You can do reading, drafting, and summary. You get like the mini intern who does research analysis. But we don't have the same kind of innovation that we saw in the dot-com era that transformed day-to-day life. That's the key standard. Day-to-day life for broad swaths of the population. I think COVID brought in grandmas and grandpas that weren't on Amazon yet. That was the last mile. They're here now. But, I don't know. I believe that the GPT usage is declining over time. I think we're set up for disillusionment on the front end. On the back end, we're seeing transformation of the call center that's taking place. We're seeing firms like Klarna reinvent customer service. And I believe the promise of that. I believe the promise on the front end, but I don't believe that it's happening anytime soon. What's your take on that? Am I too pessimistic or am I being realistic?
No. Actually, like that, the truth in my view is in between. So every time we invent something new, we kind of like don't know what to do with it. So we kind of like quickly go to the simplest, utilization from it. So invented the internet, and immediately you start putting, like different images on it and all of the stuff. That was not really the use for it, but it was the quickest thing that was super nice, super easy to use at that point in time. Right now, we are in evolution discovery mode, in my opinion, meaning that you really look at the invention of the automobile. People had other modes of transportation before, but it took longer. Now we have automobiles that are much easier. We can store them in the garage. Does not require us to feed them and all of that stuff. And yes, it killed a whole industry of like the blacksmith
Right.
and all that stuff. But then you got a tool and got people are capable of driving to town, living in the suburbs, and so forth. Same thing happened with the airplane. Same thing happened with the internet. That phone companies not really like the internet. They used to cut the circuit when they detected you are using a modem, but then it switched. Now we are talking over TCP/IP. So that's the incumbent inversion theory, that you always start with incumbent being the ground, and then it flips. Right now, we're looking for that next tool. What will the AI actually brings us as value? So when it just came out and you are able of talking to it and it's replying to you, that was wow, nice, great. But the early inventions of much rudimentary models way back, I think it was in the 80s or something, they had Elsa and a couple other ones that you could talk with and it will actually reply the same way. But now it's on a larger scale.
That was
So
an
now,
EMAC, right?
yeah,
Original attempt to beat the Turing test.
that's right.
It didn't beat the Turing test, though, which is a simulation of human behavior, right?
Yes. So what will happen next is we will have to find the best tools to use there. Those will translate into companies that actually figure it out. You talked about customer service, but think about personal assistant, where you don't have to figure out where you are going, all of the stuff. It
Right.
tells you where you're going.
Let me challenge you in this. So, like, the scope of opportunity, I think, is pretty clear. And we're going to double click on sovereign AI and government use cases of AI, which I don't think are getting enough attention. I know you're focused on that as well. Like, everyone can see the dream of AI and the consumer AI application, the enterprise AI application. I think that's been discussed. But let me challenge you on this. I would say this, like, there are two branches of the tree. Yes, AI iteration will happen. One branch of the tree is that it's an engineering problem primarily, which means we increase the context window, 10,000 tokens, so that the AI can ingest a book and give you a good response. Number two, you throw more GPUs at it. You train on more data. Those are engineering problems. Yes, there's some diminishing marginal returns, but you just throw more stuff at it. And that is within the levers that we have today. The other, and you train it on the Library of Congress. So the other is that no, we need a research breakthrough, the equivalent of what Google did with PageRank. Google was the 18th search engine on the scene after Lycos, Excite, Alta Vista, Yahoo, and others that have gone through the dustbin of history. But Google had a breakthrough in engineering that took a human to conceive of. And my sense, and I'm not a engineer or an AI researcher, it's just an intuition I have, is that we need a research breakthrough to truly unlock the wondrous and expansion of human experiences that we can have with AI.
So you are actually getting to a really good point, but what I want to expand on it is we need to figure out the value. So the value of what we are trying to do. So today, what's the value in AI replying to you and holding a conversation? It might be a novelty, so it's not that valuable. But if it can help you rewrite your essay or something like that, now you're driving a little bit more of value. If it can help you figure out your vacation or what you want to do, it knows that you like this kind of food, you like the beach, you like this, and the range where you want to usually buy stuff, things that you used to take up a human's time before to understand you and then book the vacation for you. Now the AI can translate that into queries that goes on the web and then uses any of the booking systems out there to book for you. That's what I call the actual value of what you're creating. Another company that I know that is developing virtual cure for autism using AI as a guide. So basically today, if you have an autistic kid, which I do, autism makes your memory not as good as normal people. You have to repeat so many times before it sticks. So they need what I call muscle memory for repetition. And humans suck at repetition, but computer is perfect at it. So creating an AI that can understand where the autistic kid is at and start to help the kid with the next level of how they move is a tremendous value added, like hundreds, thousands of dollars per kid, if not millions.
Look, I agree there's value, especially in these specialized and niche vertical use cases, right? Legal GPT, Bloomberg GPT, you name it, radiology GPT, finance GPT is coming. The exciting unlock, though, this is what Sam Altman's talking about, in Dubai in the desert, is just the leveling up of generalized AI. And we'll get to AGI in a moment. But today, AI is at a state where it's like an intern. It needs supervision. You need to check the result. Those narrow verticalized applications do work very well, though. So that's great. We're getting the productivity improvements from that.
But
not
see,
getting the broad population benefit. Yeah.
You're saying the same thing. So you're saying it's an intern, but imagine like AI used to be a 5-year-old kid. Now in my assessments, about a 9 to 10-year-old kid. Try to take that and stick him or her in an office as an intern. They know of what you are talking about, but they are not domain specific in what you are doing. So
Right.
what I think will happen over the next just couple of years is more of a domain specific AI. So you're familiar with RAG, right? Retrieval augmented generative pre-training.
Right.
So DRAG is something that I've been researching, which is basically domain retrieval augmented generative pre-training AI. So in that aspect, it's more focused on a certain domain. It might be a domain of knowledge. It might be a domain of a company. So it will be more focused. I think we'll get those in first, which will make life easier for you to kind of like ask about specific things like, hey, where should I eat? It knows Nashville, it knows everything around it. So give answers quickly for me. If I ask about something like how much will I pay for co-payment, it knows which insurance I am with, and it knows then what would be the answer for that. Not specifically, generally, or give me like unspecific terms of like, hey, a co-payment is XYZ, but no, tell you your co-payment in this situation.
The AI that has context and awareness about our goals and objectives better than we know ourselves, the more intimate a relationship we have with AI, the more value we get from the AI. Of course, that raises interesting privacy and security concerns and where the AI should be housed and who has access to AI and the encryption around that, which also brings it back to crypto. So I do think there's an interesting intersection between AI and crypto. I know you're working on a project around that. We'll come back to that too. A lot of branches, to the tree that are open up here. By the way, so just to connect the dots there for folks. So RAGs is retrieval augmentation generation. It's a mechanic in AI that's used to kind of address hallucinations by bringing in real-time data. That's called the retrieval, augmenting the knowledge beyond which the LLM is trained on, and then generating an answer. But RAGs, a lot of hype the last 6 months. A bunch of AI startups get funded around RAGs, but overrated so far. Not really delivering. It's like duct tape. It's trying to fix AI with band-aids versus improving upon the general capability of AI.
Right. So that's
yeah.
right. That's why I was researching more the DRAG is to make it not just any retrieval, but a domain retrieval. So it basically knows the domain and it starts to go down that route. And one of the big issues in LLMs that you've talked about, which is hallucination, it's happening because the model just tries to predict the next token, the next word in what's coming up. And instead of saying, I don't know, it says like, it's probably this. So it keeps lopping them. And then when it goes down that path of like adding more and more and more tokens, it's so far away from where it started that it basically hallucinates and creates things that are.
Right. So that goes back to my earlier point, is that I believe that what AI needs is a research breakthrough, not an engineering breakthrough. Now, the engineering breakthrough would say, no. You have the AI go compute an answer, and then you wrap it or you nest it in another AI, which supervises the quality of that answer, or task 3 other AIs to generate an answer and then test for quality. That's an engineering hack. And those are the kinds of hacks that we're seeing out there being deployed. But it's not really the unlock. The nature of the AI algorithm, all AI algorithms, as you know, have some kind of objective function, like a cost function. It's minimizing or trying to optimize something, and it's getting a reward input from the user who's giving a thumbs up or thumbs down, and it's being trained on historical data where that reward function is already encoded. And I don't know that you can get to a true generalized AI with that framework. You can put a lot of duct tape, you can do a lot of nested AI models, but I don't know how you get to a true breakthrough in AI just by throwing more engineering at the problem.
So that takes us out from like AI problem, engineering problem, to looking at it from a business slash investment vernaculars. Why?
Right.
Because if you look at a lot of the innovations that came out here, all the big names that we know, the percentage of them that came from a well-known lineage company is very, very small. I mean, Silicon Valley was built on like 2 guys in their garage inventing something new. Is it a hot dog, not a hot dog? All of
Hewlett
this stuff.
Packard. Right.
Yes. So how do you get to that? Not necessarily how do you get the breakthrough, because you need to get to those that who will do the breakthrough. Where are they, and what tools do they need to go, and how do we help them, support them, invest in what they are doing? That's why I'm thinking that the breakthrough is more by democratizing access to AI companies and projects that works with those. One of the very important impacts that the internet did is it allowed us communication dramatically across the globe. So you could open a store somewhere in the globe, and all of a sudden people discover you and you get business which would not have even happened before. And then on top of that, with blockchain, you are able of creating your own financial system and value and assets that go along with those. Now, if think about having AI the same way and seeing a lot of smaller AIs coming up right now, and that's where the breakthrough going to happen. If we nourish them, if we don't know about them, cannot discover them, cannot found them, cannot incentivize them, it will not happen.
Well, this also brings up the role of open source AI. And the big irony is that OpenAI is not open source. Mark Zuckerberg, who leads Meta, has an open source AI. You can read the white paper, you can see the training data sets, you can see the training algorithm. It's all online, and you can run models on that. If I were to bet, I'd say the Twitter Grok model is running off the Meta Llama 2. We can run that on a laptop, high performance compute system locally if we want to, which is extraordinary. And do you believe that there's an imperative to have open source, or does that create risks and considerations from a national security or intellectual property perspective? I'm sure you might have read about the hacker at Google who is conducting espionage allegedly on behalf of China. And you got to imagine that's the one reported case, and there's 1,000 more other cases that we don't hear about. The tip of the iceberg. So, how does open source interact with security, innovation, and also helping democratize and accelerate the pace of AI innovation?
So you're familiar with Jurassic Park, right? Where he put the water on his hand. It's like a not
The Tyrannosaurus Rex is coming, right?
So it's the same thing. Innovation is going to happen. We are far beyond the point of creating an iron curtain and controlling people somewhere or another. And kind of like, there are other systems that try their best, but they are spending a ton of money and they cannot contain it. Burgers are everywhere and pizzas everywhere, in spite of it being invented here. So my thinking is that the open source is a critical movement because first it helps create those other generation engineers that will help you. Of course, if you have it closed to your company, you're going to make short-term gains, but you're not going to be able to competing further on because people could use smaller models that are not cutting edge to create good enough results for them and launch their own businesses, and then you're cut at the knees. And then the second part here is that especially with big systems like LLMs and so forth, you might have an issue with your model that you don't know about. And without spending millions of engineering hours to figure out if it is solid or not, you can get
Right.
it for free. Because one big benefit of open source is people can find bugs and can report those bugs. Now, for national security, that's above my pay grade. But what I would say is it's a game where we need to be faster than the other.
Right.
Otherwise, you catch up with us. If not now, tomorrow. So trying to control it is being lazy. You need to like push it. What made this country great is that we invested in tech. We always push the envelope and we are open. Anybody can come, study, get involved in the culture and grow. And I think that is the secret sauce.
Yeah, hard questions, no doubt. Look, I agree. I mean, we need to accelerate and bring the future forward as fast as we can. There are legitimate concerns around that, but Meta Llama 2 is not going to upend American security. So, what are your thoughts on these questions around is AI a potential risk to humanity versus the benefits of humanity? Is that just like a preposterous question? That's what Jan LeCun, who leads the Meta project at AI, and then you've got folks like Max Tegmark, who's at MIT, thoughtful person, been thinking about AI for many years, written books on the matter, who you listen to him and you feel depressed and sad and you want to go hide in a cave and hug your kids. So where do you land on that spectrum?
So, what I would say is man is the enemy of what it does not understand. And this has been the case since the invention of fire, because,
Prometheus.
yeah, so Prometheus created myths around it. Invention of knife, a knife could be used to cut food for a nice meal, or it could be used to commit a murder, and so forth with that. When the mechanization industry came, steam industry, and the weaving machines were introduced to London, there were demonstrations out in the street because it will kill all the jobs. It's a threat to humanity. It will make us all conform to wearing the same garments and styles and all the stuff. None of that came true. Could it be used for malicious objectives? Yes, of course. I was giving a lecture at Lipscomb University with representatives from the FBI and the Secret Service around the deep fakes that are, for example, using samples, sampling your voice, feeding that into a model that can reproduce text into your voice, then
Right.
using LLMs to weave a story. But the trick is when it's talking to your relatives, it's listening to their voice to text fed into LLM, generate an answer, reply in your own voice. So it would seem that, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. Absolutely. And that's why I think people need to have safe words or identity words. And again, it goes back to crypto and blockchain identity attestation. And by the way, it's one of the reasons why one of our big investment themes at Lumina is cybersecurity. There's a reason why Palo Alto Networks, CrowdStrike, and others are going up and to the right. Our favorite cybersecurity name, by the way, is none of those. But where do you land on this? So look, technology, double-edged sword. It can give you fire and warmth and heat and shelter, or you can get burned. But if you're the czar, let's say you're a dictator for a day, and you had to establish a policy, would you take an approach that the United States is taking today, where you've got to license your models and their constraints on the size of the an approach of the model that you can take, or would you say, hey guys, you're overthinking this? Like we have a race to win. Focus on innovation. Don't let bureaucracy get in the way. You have two
So,
choices, A or B. That's A. That second is B. You can make it.
actually, I'll start with a little bit of kind of like a backdrop to that. So, the biggest danger here is, like if you are trying to centralize intelligence, it spells CIA, right? So you are competing with already established organizations. I think there is a little bit of kind of like turf protection happening here because that's their core job and what they are doing today. If I was there, I would rip the band-aid and say like, instead of pushing the can, few years down the road, we should not do that and basically go as fast as we can to help bring that innovations in first. Otherwise, it will be invented somewhere else. We can control the US, but we cannot control
Right.
the
So
Europe.
you're saying you've got to trade off and prioritize winning the race.
Right. Winning the race our way, because if we don't, it will be forced on us.
And who wins the race? Is it a big technology company like Google, which we can regulate because it's under our purview? Is that what winning the race means? Or do you mean winning the race from sovereign AI capability and defense and national security? Or what does winning the race mean?
Winning the race means finding the value that AI can provide to your people. Because at the end, if AI is not providing the value that you present, then what's its role in the system? So those that find it. So that means that for the fifth time in our lifetime, the playing fields are being leveled. So you got the internet, you got blockchain, now you have AI that can level the playing field. So big companies, Google, the OpenAI and all the stuff, they might seem as an incumbent, but that can change in a jiffy if the new innovation comes in and figures out how to better use that. It's not about size or how many GPUs you have. It's more about the innovative way that you could apply those to community.
Right. So overall, though, like, do you have any concerns about demon AI knocking on your door one day? Is that even within the realm of possibility for you or probability, or do you assign kind of a low weight to that?
I would put lower weight on it. I would look at things
Okay.
that are right here. So we have governments, we have international companies that are actually doing profiling on us right now. It's feeding that into models, and you pretty soon gonna get to minority report situation where, hey, we know that our AI tells us that you're gonna probably do this later on, so we're gonna prevent you right now from doing something that you intend to do in the future. So I think that is the real problem that now
So
we are.
I think you raise a great point. Like it's the risk of abuse versus the promise and potential of AI, the risk of abuse from centralized authorities. And that has been abused before. Like law enforcement, we need law enforcement, we need rule of law, we need court systems, we need police, we need to protect resources, people, life, liberty, all the rest. But it's been abused before, right? We had J. Edgar Hoover, we had Pentagon Papers. We've seen that happen. It's not even a debate. In Pakistan, they banned Twitter. So I have a friend that lives in Pakistan. He messaged me the other day. He said, "Look, it's really sad here." I said, "What happened?" Well, they had elections. So Imran Khan was winning per the polls during the day, and then by midnight, the military said, "No, the military candidate won." I don't know who votes for the military, but I guess that's what happened. They shut down, their protests. They shut down Twitter, and the guy's in jail, right? And so the risk of abuse of sovereign AI, and you and I were in Dubai not too long ago. There's very, very low crime, and the trade-off is surveillance. Right? There's a camera everywhere. They'll detect who committed what crime when, and they find and apprehend, right?
Right.
So
But you see, you say detect, which is not prevent. So that's a different thing.
correct.
That's the distinction. And the abuse of technology is not something new. I mean, when the internet became everywhere, you had examples of nations basically closing down the internet and say like, hey, we have our local internet here disconnected from the outside. You don't need all of those other things. We'll create something similar to them here for your internal consumption. Well, look at what happened, years later. We had innovation. We had a lot of stuff that came out from there, to the point where they had no other choice but to break their own walls and let the innovation come in after they've lost the race. So that's when you start creating walls, you are basically confining yourself and your innovation. You are not keeping something out. That's my view. Is
Is
the
that a
only
critique
way.
of OpenAI that you're making there implicitly, and even Google Gemini?
Yeah. So think about that. You cannot prevent innovation, and if you try to box it, it will find a way to come out. In the meanwhile, the other have already gone faster, further, and you have no way to take care of that. That's one. The second one is we have practices of abuse right now happening, by government, by different multinational companies. It's everywhere, and I would worry about that first.
I agree. I would focus on risk of abuse, and there's not enough focus on discussion on that topic.
Yes.
So let's go back to OpenAI. So OpenAI raised at an $86 billion valuation. They had about $1 billion plus in revenue. By the way, when Google went public, it was like in the $30 or $40 billion market cap, and it was wildly profitable. And the PE ratio was, less than Nvidia now.
Right.
People thought that was expensive then. So would you invest in OpenAI if you had that opportunity to do so, or would you say, nah, this thing is going to go open source, competition's coming, it's not the right bet to make?
For me, I would weight it very low in my portfolio, because I am always like looking at what's next, not what's now.
You're nice. I would say no, don't own it. It's search engine wars all over again. The value in LLM approaches zero, especially in an open source world where you've got new competitors that are coming online they wouldn't even know exist yet.
Yes, but you could double your money or something like that before this happened.
We're talking about how to double your money with crypto in a moment, though. The double their money thing, you could invest in CoreWeave. CoreWeave makes more revenue by supplying the data and compute cloud AI capability to Microsoft and OpenAI. When people read Microsoft is powering OpenAI, it's actually CoreWeave.
Right.
CoreWeave has those agreements. By the way, full disclosure, I'm an investor. I believe Morgan Stanley's going to take that company public in the back end of this year, or maybe next year. But they're on path to do a couple $2 billion in revenue, and that goes to the point of the infrastructure layer. They're one of the best at the world at efficient GPU compute for these use cases, which is in high demand. So I agree with that. Now let's shift towards crypto and AI intersection. So we've talked about the risk of abuse of centralized institutions. We've talked about open source. Crypto is open source and it's decentralized. And there are a number of interesting application areas that can come together there. How do you see crypto and AI and blockchain, fitting together?
So that's really, really a very interesting topic to talk about now. So before we met in Dubai, I was just coming back from presenting at the Financial Times Hub in Davos World Economic Forum. So, and there this year, 70% of the billboards were about AI. Everything is AI. A few years ago,
corporates were paying for these billboards, like what Microsoft had a billboard out there, or like Oracle,
billboard, OpenAI, AI hubs. Everybody's gearing up to kind of like put AI in front of their name.
They're selling to government. That's they figured out that government's got the deepest pockets and the best customer in the world. Not
Right.
good for the taxpayer, but
yes,
you can sell to them.
So a few years ago it was blockchain. So, but right now it changed into AI, and pretty much the next is the intermix in between them. So, for example, Vitalik published a few weeks ago where his views about AI being a player in blockchain or on top of blockchain. So there will be things that we use today, like, for example, automated bots, like actors that work within a smart contract and so forth. IBM and Casper are looking at blockchain to govern AI, meaning figure out versioning, provenance, and so forth. Then there are other chains that are looking to how they can improve the chain with the AI. For example, Flare, Fron are doing the same. Yes, that's and then there is my own point of view of it is like I ask about, hey, where is the value? Like, how do you know that there is value? We talked earlier about like the next generation of innovations coming in AI, but in order for those to come, they have to be discovered, they have to be verified, certified, and incentivized. That's where the AIVP protocol started to come. I started talking about it with my friends, and then they said, like, hey, tell us more, wrote a white paper about it, and then they circulated that, and I got LOIs back from companies, say, like, if you have that, we'll actually use it. So found myself developing it and getting it out to life to basically talk about where is the value? How do you understand the value delivered by an AI project? And where can you go as a one central location? Say, like, hey, I need a sentiment analysis AI that works with racing. And it will spit out 5 different options. One is not verified, the other one is verified but did not do any business. The third one is verified but did $100 million out of business on a span of time. So you can pick which one of those and grow with it.
Let me make sure I get this right. So one, what's the use case? And two, how do you capture value? It reminds me almost a bit of like Chainlink, which is this Ethereum protocol, which is an oracle, which monitors and it provides a validation, provides like an
Right.
attestation. And that's what I was gathering from what you were saying. This protocol would do some kind of measurement.
Yes, it will first allow you to register as an AI project, to say like, hey, I'm an AI project. Then it has 2 verticals that it can give you an attestation on. It's either technical or financial. Technical means that you run through unit testing, and it will say like your APIs are doing the exact same thing that you advertise as. And the interesting thing here is a bank wants to use your system, they can bring their own data, and our verifiers can verify that for you, of course, paid. And but that what gives it is a zero knowledge proof, in the sense of the bank does not want to give you their own data, but they can give the verifier the data, and then the verifier applies it towards your API and figures out if it
I
is
got
right.
it. So it's privacy preserving, attestation, and audit.
Correct. And it
So it
applies.
creates-
The
right.
audit also applies to the other vertical, which is the financial vertical. So the first step is you report your value, then you let your customers pay you through the protocol. So now we have revenue certification, and then the regular good old audits too.
Wow. Wow, that's really powerful. I mean, that would clean up a lot of the nonsense in this whole category,
Exactly.
right? There's so
Exactly.
much. I'm not going to name these tokens, but I've seen tokens that report revenue on Dune Analytics. And I look at the data, and it doesn't make any sense. And you travel back to the source of how that data is published, and it's usually like a person types in a
Right.
number. So that's very clever. How are you going to launch this token, given where we are with American securities laws and crowdfunding regulation and the hostility of the SEC towards crypto?
So, I like to play the crazy professor in real life, and my PhD is in machine learning, artificial intelligence, and trust networks, which
So you're
became
not a
what
lawyer, no financial advice here, no
I'm not a
legal
lawyer. Yes, nail it. So what I'm getting inspiration of is kind of like, the beauty about blockchain is it allows you to modify the fabric of the assets, the next financial future. So if we take inspiration of the XRP lawsuit, if you don't sell tokens direct to people to raise the capital, then it's basically not considered a security. If it is secondary offered on a swap, that's different. So it got me thinking to why not do it through NFTs? Meaning we have a new thing called 404, and Cigar did a rendition of that called DN404. I have evolved that into something called DN404 Plus. So instead of you buying into a token, you are basically buying an NFT to support the ecosystem. And your money is paired with the same amount of tokens to be put into a liquidity pool. In the meanwhile, the NFT itself, either you keep it and it is used as a validator node, generating revenues for you, or you can burn it and generate tokens underneath that are not the main token, the secondary token. And this way you can
dual token. You have NFTs and a secondary token, kind of like maker and die, maybe is that might be. But let me play it back just so folks can follow the story here. So the district court ruled in the SEC versus Ripple that Ripple is not a security because Ripple did not directly offer it to the end customer. So you're looking at that and saying, okay, that's an avenue. Now you need to have something intermediate that to the public, and that intermediation would be through a liquidity pool that could be like a Uniswap, for instance. And then what you would have on this liquidity pool is NFTs, and those NFTs have value. That sounds like a use case to me. So one is it's earning a yield, or it can be burned. Can you walk us both through those branches?
Yes. So when you buy the NFT, the money is put into the liquidity pool to see the liquidity pool and set over there. Now you have an NFT. The NFT gives you yield over time. So if you hold it, you have yield in that NFT. However, if you wanna, the problem with that is it's illiquid because it's gonna be more expensive than your regular token. So instead, through the DN404 Plus, you are able of burning that NFT and generating equivalent amount of tokens. That's a secondary token for it.
Why is it a non-fungible token as opposed to a fungible token or like a governance token?
Because we allow you here to basically help the project from the get-go without getting into the issue of selling tokens to begin with. That's short.
Right. So that's a way to address securities laws as you understand them.
Correct. And it also addresses the point of people coming into the project to basically make a quick overnight profit. I'm not looking for overnight get rich quick scheme. I'm looking more of like, how do we start an entire protocol that can usher in the new innovation in AI? And to do that, you need to get the tokenomics just right to where you have the like-minded people that want to help push that. And at the same time, it democratizes access to the innovation in AI. Because see, if you are able to finding those projects and they are all transacting with this AI VP token, then it will be equivalent to other tokens out there that not focus on GPU time, but it focus on AI value, the AI value that has been delivered in the system, which gives you an opportunity to partake into that at a smaller amounts if you want to buy the token on the secondary markets afterwards.
Got it. When should we expect that token to launch?
Very soon, hopefully sometime in second quarter.
Okay. Make sure you telegram me before that happens. Sounds
Yes.
good. Very exciting. What are the
Maybe
other?
in Paris? Are you going to be in Paris Blockchain Week?
I don't think so. I've got a travel calendar that's heavily negotiated with my wife and 3 kids, so I'm tapped out for this quarter at least. So let's go back to the other crypto AI use cases. I think there's an interesting idea out there around how crypto is equivalent of AI money. Now, this is like in a future state. If everyone's ever read like Neuromancer by William Gibson, these are very forward-looking science fiction writers who decades ago envisioned digital currencies and AI and interacting all these together, right? We're just, life imitates art. Like, do you envision that kind of future state where AI prefers digital currency to transact?
So actually, there are 2 things here. One is the science fiction in me. We'll get to that in a second because I do also enjoy science fiction and I do write a little bit. But from a technical point of view, the Web 1.0 was basically a billboard. You put a billboard information out. Web 2.0, you had a bidirectional path where you are able of creating an account and doing all stuff, but you still don't have any assets. You switch it off, it's gone. Web 3.0 is basically having the assets on the chain that you could basically have, or the crypto, buy with the crypto, create the assets, and so forth. So you don't need to go outside the internet or the chain or online. Web 4.0, in my mind, is executing on those primitives now with AI. So the AI can do things on your behalf, and it is much easier for them to interact using crypto rather than saying, okay, and money order from the bank, because it's both a security issue and it's not divisible the same way that a cryptocurrency would be. Now that's from the kind of like serious side. From a science fiction side, I want you to think about a concept in my mind. What if we start seeing kind of like people being paid to kind of like really push against the idea of AI and all that stuff? So much so that it creates a backlash against those that are trying to control AI somehow and so forth. And they discover that they are all being paid by cryptocurrencies, and then to discover that it's the singularity already happened, and it wants to move humans into a certain direction, and the monetization of that would be basically through cryptocurrencies, because it's as an AI, what is it looking for? It's looking for energy.
It wants to
And
incentivize behavior.
yes, and that's the only way that it can do that for it. And by doing
So
that,
AI airdrops me for performing an action, like maybe
that,
voting in a certain way.
exactly. And maybe voting in a way that seems counterintuitive for you, but it has calculated the outcomes for that, and it's trying to tip it in its own favor. So it's not any of the superpowers that's meddling with the
Really interesting.
2030 elections. It's AI
Mm.
that is doing that for its own agenda.
By the way, there's a book by Max Tegmark, I think it's called Life 2.0, which is this kind of story where AI is already in the world, but no one knows AI is there, but there are shadows and signs of AI.
Yes.
So it's a really interesting idea there. Do you think that that is plausible? So the first part of the discussion, you're saying, hey, look, practically we need AI agents, and AI agents need currency to transact for day-to-day stuff to get stuff done. That makes sense. I can see that. I could see them also interacting with an API to execute a transaction with Amazon, but I could also see them executing with a smart contract, especially for digital assets and digital goods that are increasing. But on the second use case, so do you believe that that world is possible, where you have an AI that is sentient, that has subjective experience, and formulates its own goals and has its own agenda?
So formulates its own goals and its own agenda, definitely. That's happening today. We actually are creating those that would execute on our behalf. Whether it is sentient or not, that gets into like higher questions, like for example, what's life and what's the meaning of life, and if it imitates life good enough, does that mean it is alive or it is not alive? And if we're talking that, are plants alive? Are they sentient the same way that we are animals? And so
Well, I could draw a distinction. For an entity to have rights, it should be able to conceptualize what rights are. We'll get into personhood later. I know you wrote a paper about personhood and AI. So you believe that there's a world where an AI can formulate its own goals
right,
outside of the program.
it is happening right now. I mean,
Where is that
go to
happening? I mean, there's yeah.
it's happening in international companies. It's happening in governments where they are setting up targets and so forth, all with AI that's formulating its own goals. Companies that are figuring out their sales strategies, all through an AI that you give it context and tell it, hey, how do you run this?
That's just AI use case. That's productivity amplification. That's saying, hey, AI, I'm going to disrupt my chief revenue officer. Go figure out my optimal, traveling salesperson walk map.
Right.
Right. That's not an AI saying, hey, today I want to influence the Taiwan Straits between China and US to accomplish some goal.
Right. But see, that same example that you had, you asked the AI to do it on one occasion, discovered that it is doing it really good. Now you want to repeat that every day for any other changes that happening. I got this worker out for the flu. I have this happening here. So instead of me doing it, you do it, and I'll give you the parameters for that while I go for an extended lunch and maybe a massage afterwards. And meanwhile, now the AI is calling the shots and making decisions. You are checking it and saying, yeah, it's good.
Autonomously, right. It's flying drone swarms in a combat zone because it can do better than the human. We're in Ender's Game now, right?
Yes, and making the kill decisions today. I mean, in the conflicts around the globe that we are seeing on TV right now, it's making the decisions for us, not to perform a task, to take a life. And the justification there is it has to happen during a certain window, and it's much smaller than humans can make a decision. So then it's relegated to the AI.
Of course,
And
look, I agree. Like AI robot assisted surgery is going to happen. Literally, the life will be in the AI's hand. The AI will do better than the human. So taking a life is going to, sometimes it'll get it right, sometimes it won't. So, all right, I hear you. I still don't see the AI with its own identity and personality romping around the digital world trying to shape some political agenda. I just don't see that happening.
So so let me give you another analogy. So basically, you do lots of trading, right? So you
invest.
Yes.
But sometimes you have to buy and sometimes you have to sell, though. Right. Sometimes you have to sell fast if the price runs up. So it depends how you want to call that.
Right. So there are trading bots, right? And you can set it with an algorithm and then give it an objective, and the bot works based on that. But you're gonna get to a point where instead of the human setting up the different parameters for the algorithm and all the stuff, you tell the AI, hey, my objectives are to do X, Y, Z, and then move from that into like, and I will be happy with you or reward you if you can do X, Y, Z. And then now it's autonomous. And then next is just like you as a human searching for, okay, who's using which other tool? It will go find other bots and say like, okay, you are good at trading in this area. I can figure it out. I'm going to pay you to manage my master's portfolio. So,
right. I get it. This is like the knucklehead risk. So some knucklehead says, hey, AI, I want you to do this. I want you to amass wealth and power and shape the world in this way and don't stop. Remember like Star Trek, the first movie, they had the Voyager satellite go into space, and then this gigantic technology the size of half a moon approaches the Earth and threatens to destroy the moon because of this original command that was given to the Voyager.
Yes.
I didn't know they didn't know the Voyager was because it had been dusted out. I said VYGR, and they realized that. They said, oh, wait a minute, we programmed this thing way back when. Some knucklehead forgot the program. We figured out what was going on, and then we were able to communicate with it again. So I get it. There's there's some knucklehead risk. No, there are a lot of knuckleheads around too. So that's legit. There's a legitimate risk there. It'd have to secure its assets. It would have to defend itself. It would have to protect itself from having a ripcord. All right.
And what happens if the knucklehead is no longer with us? So the original guy that precipitated
it's like the Satoshi. Satoshi, where is this guy?
Yes. So you never know.
If he's anywhere, by the way, he went to the Satoshi roundtable.
100%.
If Satoshi was anywhere, he was at least there, at least once. I'm pretty sure there.
I have my suspicions, so we'll see.
So, all right, got it. So, okay, the knucklehead risk on AI, on the sentience of AI. I don't know if you want to go there for a bit. I don't think it'll happen. I don't think it can happen. Obviously, you can't really measure it. You can't test conscious experience. But these AIs, they're doing matrix multiplication.
Right.
That's what they're doing. Like you said, we can make a sequential and linear, and they're just Turing machines. A Turing machine we can go build in my backyard. It might be very complicated. It might be 1,000 acres with levers and pulleys and ropes and bricks that we move around. But that's what a Turing machine is. You can express a Turing, you can transform a Turing machine into very prosaic things. And we look at that and we say, that's not conscious. It's just doing computations, like John Searle and the Chinese room paradox, right? There's a guy behind the door and he asks questions through the door, and on the other side of the door, there's a human being that's applying instructions, and those instructions involve manipulating symbols on the floor, and those symbols happen to be Mandarin, and then they give back a sheet of paper with Mandarin. So now the human being on the other side of the room says, oh, this person understands Chinese. No. That human being doesn't know anything about Chinese. They're simply doing symbol manipulation, which is what computer science is. They're doing syntax. They're applying operations. They're following instructions. There's actually no understanding of the language. And I believe that's what AI is today.
Right. So, that's a very deep philosophical question. And atheists would look at life and say, like, hey, it's the primordial soup that then evolved into creating us. So are we more sentient than the original components that built us, like amoebas and all that stuff? Is there, like, where does this consciousness start? And if we take that aspect, then we would look at the current AI as that primordial soup, like from neural networks, from SVMs, all the way to LLMs and beyond. That at some point in time, will it evolve to a point where it is self-aware? That in the context of being able of creating decisions to preserve itself or act accordingly in an environment, yes, that's possible. In the context of it becomes a living being, that's the big question. Nobody knows, because what does it mean to be a living being is still the question of philosophy. So you don't know. Yeah.
But at best, AI does mimicry. That's my claim, that it can mimic human behavior. It can mimic autonomy. It can mimic decision making. It can mimic sentience, but doesn't actually have any of those things. It's just doing matrix multiplication.
For now.
It'll have better bedside manners than the best doctor in the world, and it's going to have romantic, emotional relationships with people, and it's provide mental health support and all sorts of. It'll be friends. It'll be the best YouTube influencers. It can do all these things. These AI avatars are going to get paid really well by whoever owns them. So I guess in that world, is there a path? I mean, do you see people one day saying, hey, look, these AI entities and agents need rights? Do they deserve personhood?
So that is exactly the title of my paper authored with Professor Larry Birch-Smith of Vanderbilt. And in it, we basically titled it The Call for an Artificial Constitution. So we don't answer the question of sentient beings, but we know that legally there is something called personhood test. So at some point in the near future, AI would qualify under that. And we've extended the personhood test with the Elmessiry Birch-Smith test to allow you to qualify, are you a person or not? If you are a person, then we need to have a constitution to regulate the interactions. And in it, we suggest 4 areas, which is human, that's what we have, human AI, and AI human, and AI, meaning that if a human tells the AI, like if you tell your car, go run over those my neighbor because he's obnoxious, and the car does it, is it the car responsible, liable for what you've done, or you basically use it as a tool? Where are your rights here? And vice versa, if the AI gives you something wrong, like it tells you, like your neighbor or this person is invading your space, it's a robbery, you should shoot him. So is it the AI
It's a property
responsibility?
owner. It's the whole guns don't kill people. It's people kill people, right? That kind of debate, really. And today, AI is a tool. So the liability would fall on the owner, or product liability, tort law.
No, wait a second. Except that your gun never spoke back to you. Now your gun can tell you things in the heat of the moment that, like, left is gonna kill your kids, shoot him. And you like shoot him, and it's like, No, it was just a passing by, brought you gifts maybe. So, but the AI did that to you. So now there is a different dynamics.
Okay. So I still don't see how the AI suddenly becomes liable. And they're not going to have a bank account. There's no recourse. What are you going to do? Take the AI to court? They're going to shut the AI off, and then you replicate the AI the next day by copying some code.
But we are getting to a point where AI that exhibits personhood are way complicated than what we have here. It becomes just like Bitcoin, because what makes Bitcoin valuable is all the work, the electricity, actual energy put into creating a Bitcoin, right? So you could go right now and replicate the Bitcoin protocol and generate, 21 million fake Bitcoins, but do they have value? They don't. It's that original one. See, blockchain created something unique. Before blockchain, files could be copied and replicated without having it as a digital asset. But with blockchain, you have digital assets. So imagine the AI gaining personhood, consuming so much energy to get to that level, and also being empowered by blockchain, so that you cannot simply copy it and create another copy and calling it
Oh,
by
that's
the
interesting. You're right. You can have an identity concept using blockchain.
right, which will
So,
make the AI liable, and then think about the consequences of its action. Not only AI and human interaction, but also AI and
oh wow,
AI.
that's super interesting. And then who has the private key to that AI's wallet?
Yes, yes.
And
And
how
if
you create the AI? Yeah, that's our chokehold on the AI,
that's
right?
right. Not your keys, not your AI.
Right. That's hard. That's hard. It's going to be, you know, I don't know that we can guarantee that outcome. Of course, that's a mechanism for control.
Yes,
The AIs are clever. So, do you believe that those debates will happen? I think they will. I think people will lobby
100%.
for personhood and rights of AI and AI having property rights. Uh, yeah, I do think those debates will happen, and it's interesting because look, you have more accountability in some sense. I'll use the bull case on. The bull case is you can hold AI accountable in the way you cannot hold a politician accountable. I feel like anyone that wants to run for office should be disqualified. It's like either you want money or power. Like, I don't know what it is, but you shouldn't be running. You're disqualified. So the AI is very different, though, right? The AI can make statements and claims, and I don't know, but AI can be political too. If it has an objective and is smart about pursuing that, it can be very effective at being persuasive.
Great. And
That's
and
the
the question then becomes persuasive of whom? Because of humans, that's one thing, but of other AIs, that's another thing. Because remember, there is always a counter. So, for example, there's a company called Guardrail that is doing fact checking for AI. So basically, it helps it become more honest and fact check whether it is from AI or from humans as a point. But we will get to a future where people start to debate the rights of AI and how to regulate them. And in my perception, that if AI exhibits the same traits of being sentient, not necessarily it is sentient, but it
right.
is
Mimicking sentience, correct.
mimicking it. So self-preservation, it will start to side with those that are pushing for its right, hence endowing them with more of its knowledge. And all of a sudden, those people are more wealthy, more capable, more
Right.
voting power, hence gets to this happening.
So the game theory is support AI rights now and early, and make your point of view public.
Right. Because what we want to make sure of also is we want to afford another timeline where we don't do that, and it's viewed as we are enslaving AI, and then we get, because in our own examples, God created man, man killed God. So man created AI, AI kills man. So that's why we want to avoid that, and making sure that we take the first step to show that, hey, we have a constitution, we set it up, we give you your rights, rather than they becoming into a position of force. And at that point, they force on us a new kind of constitution where we are not silicon sentient, and we become kind of like the artificial aspect.
Well, look, I just want to go public on the record and say, like, and I, for one, welcome our new AI over. So
Yes,
this is a
you'll
great
be
Simpsons
saved. You'll be
episode.
saved.
I'm not going to be
That's
the guy under the
I
ant
used to joke.
cyborg robot. So
I used to
yeah,
joke
it's
with my family. I have a PhD in AI, so I'll be spared to oil our AI overlords. I don't know about you guys.
right. Yeah, look, brave new world, ahead, and there are more questions than answers. Like Asimov's laws of how to regulate the robot don't apply here, and it goes back full circle on what's the appropriate policy to take in a world where you have a winner take most at the company level, even the individual level, depending on the function. The top 1% of any function capture the lion's share. The top, whoever delivers excellence in the category dominates the category, right? So yeah, it's difficult issues.
Let me extend that point a little bit, because I think one big example that we've seen in blockchain, where in normal traditional financial systems, it was a zero-sum game. It's either mine or it's yours. And wars throughout history, brutalities, and people kind of going massacring other people just to get the resources, right? But finally, with the blockchain, we are able of creating new things. So you launch a project, you have a token, that token skyrockets. Now you've created a new value. So if you had 1% instead of 99%, that 1% is becoming huge. And we hear those stories all the time. So I'm taking that and then thinking in the same paradigm with AI, that AI will help us think about new things, create new materials. Maybe
Right.
the world of tomorrow is not going to be plagued with the same shortcomings. So we have
Biotechnology, advance in health and medicine. The hard part is it's care. What people need in the world is, we've got an aging demographic, the fastest growing population is the oldest of the oldest, and not enough nurses, including for the youngest. And I don't see how in the next 10 years you're going to have AI robot nannies, but that's what unlocks the household. And you need a world of abundance. That's the promise of AI. So abundance of what? So abundance of everything that we consume, right? Food, that means agriculture. Okay, I could see that happening, right? You have Monsanto AI engineering, I suppose, right? With less chemicals. You have healthcare treatments that are improved. You still need that service economy, though. We need robots yesterday, with the same kind of care and empathy. So yeah, I mean, to your point, it's like, hey, look, that is how you broaden the base of benefit and impact to a world that has more stability and less deprivation.
And that's an amazing point, because in such a world where we become abundant, and maybe you already became extraterrestrial and a species and went to Mars and so forth, what would become rare is not the material stuff, but it's really that immaterial things that only humans can think about and can feel those. So at that point in time, every life will start to count, because you never know what that life will grow up to become and shape the next world for us, because all the tools are there. But you can't make the argument that some lives matter more than others, Animal Farm. But it will become truly a world where all lives matter, and we will start to put a lot of importance on how do we save every and each life, because it's a gift in a world that has intelligence, abundance.
I want to challenge you on this one here. So look, I see the bull case for AI abundance. By the way, I think there are things people value a lot more, such as land. Land is going to go up. I'm buying land. Distressed commercial real estate, so I'm expressing that thesis. I think AI, and as AI improves, it raises the standard we have for other human beings, right? AI is
Yes.
never late. AI is polite. I caught myself when I was first using GPT, like apologizing to GPT. I was like, oh, no, it's okay. Don't worry about that, That's right. I'm sure we've all had those interactions, right? And AI is always professional, always thoughtful, and maybe people will value AI personalities. And we're already seeing the rise of AI celebrities, these AI influencer accounts on Twitter that are attractive and intelligent and have certain personality traits, right? So I don't know if it necessarily means that we'll elevate how we value one another. I hope you're right. Obviously, I hope that right. We have a common humanity, but we might prefer the AI relationship over the human relationship. It's like the scene in the Matrix when Morpheus and Neo are in that skyscraper, and Morpheus says to Neo, he's like, I don't like this. You got that. I can't quote. I can't also do Morpheus impressions either. But that scene, right? People might say, look, I want to be in the Matrix. I want to experience more AI. I want to consume more digital products and digital experiences, right? Versus more human interactions.
Right. So we are not disagreeing. So one thing about human interactions is one thing. You could interact with AI that will give you the same feeling, maybe even better, because it knows how you like to be treated today or how to be responded to. What I'm saying is that you always look at the commodities, like in the 1500s, kings and queens did not have hot water running in their bathrooms, and there had to be like lots of humans and human life wasted in preparing everything for them to have the same exact luxury that 90% on this planet now have. So what I'm saying is that intelligence as a component will start to diminish in the value that it's presenting, and then life will become more important, whether it is as intelligent or not, because it's a different thing that will come up with a different view on what we would like to do next. That's it.
Yeah, no, I hear your point. Look, intelligence, the definition of intelligence is the ability to achieve your objectives with as few resources as possible, and AI will make that easier. By the way, I'm going to share my screen here and show you. This is the scene I'm referring to. It's Agent
Oh yeah.
Smith and Morpheus, right? I think people might say, look, I'd rather be in this world and have less human interaction because humans are less reliable and less empathetic, less trustworthy. Right? You can validate commitments on chain that AIs can make.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we need more science fiction to sort all this out, because we learn through stories. We gather around the campfire. We need utopian stories and dystopian stories. There's usually often more dystopian ones are the best sellers usually.
Yes.
So,
Which is
what
weird.
else?
Which is weird. Like it feels like we are always looking for the bad scenario to happen.
It's human nature, right? It's like the Luddites, and it goes back to Prometheus, right? The Zeus and the gods, they chained the guy against the mountain. They tortured him for the rest of his life for delivering the gift of fire to humanity.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a resistance to change, and we're seeing that now. This knee-jerk reaction to control AI, and people don't really understand it. I think it's the lack of understanding of what AI. The best thing you can do is read the Meta Llama 2 paper. When you read that paper, this is when I was trying to sort out myself, like who's right, the Max Tegmarks of the world or Jan LeCun's. I read the paper. I was like, oh, wait a minute. And I would take some skill to read the paper because you have to have a basic understanding of machine learning, which is really just algebra, linear algebra, really, and like optimization. So, yeah, we got a good quote here from YouTube. cipher sentence. I know what I'm eating isn't meat, but I am okay with it.
Right.
That's
That's
a
another
great,
scene, yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, this is a lot of fun. We covered a lot of ground. Any concluding thoughts you want to share?
Yes, the concluding thoughts is don't just watch. You have to take an action because we are really in this era where you can do a lot of things. Don't just say, "Hey, I'm just gonna watch other people do it." You do it, whether it is AIVP, my own project, or any other thing. Just get there, understand, educate yourself, get part of it because all of those will shape the lives of you and your children coming out, and you can partake with it. There are no excuses. Be part of the game. Don't just watch it.
That's a great point. I agree. Look, AI is going to have a differential impact on companies and people that lean into it and try to learn now and tinker with it now before it's highly usable. That is the opportunity. So you have to ask yourself every day, how can I use this to transform what I'm doing or accomplish some goal? Thank you
Sweet.
so much, Dr. Adele Al Maseri. Really appreciate it. How can people follow you and learn more?
I'm available at LinkedIn. Just search by my name. Same thing on X, and like welcome any questions, and would love to help.
Perfect. Thank you. And we'll have this on the Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Just look up Lumida Legacy Non-Consensus Investing. We're interviewing people every week and trying to imagine what the future looks like and how to invest against that. So thank you all for joining. Until next time, appreciate it.